Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to our last day of our RVTEC. My announcements are over here. I'll get that sorted out in a minute. Just keep this up here for the announcements. Okay, how's that? Yeah, there it is. Now I can hear it. We'd like to start off our day again with the land acknowledgement. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Puyallup, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We have a series of announcements that are going to be Jules' problem.
Thank you. Till I hand it back to Brandy. So let's see here. We have been forgetting to tell you, but please stop at the sign-in desk and check in if you haven't done so already. Then we'll know how many people are really here. Bridget can help you. Thank you for your patience during the technical difficulties in the breakout sessions yesterday. Some of today's presenters have volunteered to host the sessions under their own accounts. So thank you, Ryan Kaiser, Jules Humman, Kristen Beam, Ken Feldman, and Alice Doyle. Please help them remember to hit record early. Thank you so much to everybody who attended last night's dinner at the Burke Museum. What a fabulous museum. That was really great. I need to come back and spend more time. We'll never say enough thank yous to Toby Martin and Mark Willis for all their contributions to our community. Congratulations on your retirements, and please don't be strangers. Toby, you can always change your mind. Ooh. If you signed up for the fiber optic training on Friday, you should have received a message in Hoover with a survey to complete for Light Brigade. Please complete that for them today. Also, please stop by the sign-in desk and grab an additional COVID test for tomorrow. Get in and check out the MacGyver entries under agenda and then under posters. We will send a survey link tomorrow to gather your votes and announce the winner over RVTEC. The winner will receive, I think, a fabulous Leatherman, and it might even be inscribed with UNOLS on it. Rock and roll. Yeah, I just want to say that when I checked this morning, Sonia Berger was the winner of RVTEC, so that might or might not be the answer by the end of the day, but John Haverlack and Sonia Berger were right up there with 145,000 or some ridiculous number of points. No competition there, huh? Brandy, the next is yours.
I hope you know that is an honor thing. There is no prize for the most posts in Hoover. This morning's agenda has been shuffled a little bit as well. We're going to start with our plenaries with the Marine Facilities Planner by Alice, followed by Ethan Roth with FIC and AICC committee updates. Brendon Mendenhall after that for STARC. And then I think, Kristen, you're doing the tech training subcommittee? Yeah, awesome, great, okay. Also, when the UNOLS office moved to the University of Washington, we migrated our mailing lists to Google Groups. What that means is every message that we've sent on our RVTEC is archived in a Google Group forum. So if you want to search RVTEC messages for information that you've missed or accidentally deleted, you just need to go to Google groups.google.com, logged in with the email address that you're on the list with, and you can find RVTEC and search through the forums, FYI. Before we stop saying thank yous today, I need to thank Alice Doyle for her help planning the agenda and reminding me of some of the things that we do every year, and I still manage to just completely forget. And I need to give a huge shout out to Bridget Harold Donze, who you've all seen outside of the registration desk. Bridget has been the magic that secured all of our spaces, all of our food, all of our COVID tests, and thanks to some difficulty with our registration system, hand entered every one of you into a format for Hoover. So we wouldn't be here without Bridget. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our committee chair, Jules Humman, who has shown up for this meeting in a spectacular fashion for her first meeting as chair at the end of a worldwide pandemic, at the beginning of a 10-week world tour to make sure that ADCP data is quality worldwide. And Andrew Wugin, our chair-elect, who is making sure that next year's minutes are not 500 pages. We need to thank all of our funding agencies, and in particular from ONR, Rob Sparrick, for taking the time to join us at this meeting this week and to hear from this community, and especially Jim Hollick. Without whose support, this meeting would be a fraction of what it is. And most importantly, we need to thank every single one of you for your participation. This meeting, this community is made of your enthusiasm for your work, your willingness to share, and the way that you show up for this community. And now in our new hybrid model, your active presence in the event site so that all of our technicians can be included in the meeting.
Don't forget to give Brandy a good shout out.
Okay, so this, the mic died?
Yeah.
Oh, this is why there were multiple. I was afraid this was gonna happen yesterday.
Maybe.
It needs. Okay, no, there, okay. Okay, so now for something that we planned very poorly for and realized last night at the reception. So what we would like to have, and we have it in the schedule, is summaries from yesterday's breakout sessions. But we did not designate anybody to fill us in for any of those breakout sessions. So we were wondering if anybody wanted to come down and give the 2-minute, 2-sentence
Tweet.
the tweet version of what happened in the breakouts yesterday for folks who missed it. And especially because we had technical difficulties, a lot of our online participants missed a good section of it. Do we have any volunteers for any of the sessions? Oh, come on down.
Yes.
If you participated in a session yesterday and you don't mind giving one, just come on down and we'll queue you up before we get started in the plenaries today. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, of course. It's like the hardest part. Good morning, everybody. So we did the best practices breakout session yesterday. A few technical difficulties, but we persevered. We started with the EK80 best practices group giving a summary, focusing on results from their calibration cruises and then tips and tricks. And then we went into general flow through underway once we got Sean Smith back up and running virtually. And he gave an overview of plans for the upcoming year and trying to get that group going again and working towards a flow through system document that is more general, not sensor specific, but more focused on the different components that go into underway system design and, like pumps and pipes and everything else. So after that, we had Leah McRaven come and give a very quick talk. She has a lot of great information to share. And I think a lot of the people that attended the session were really interested in seeing more of what she had. So we're going to find a way to get that information out to everybody. But she supplied some plots to kind of show what data should and shouldn't look like with regards to biofouling and some other issues that she's seen in data quality. So that was really great. And then I'll go ahead and I guess do the Seabird one as well. So Seabird came, and they were very brave. And so Chris and Heather came and did a whole Q&A session with the group. And it was wonderful for them to be here, and everybody kind of, they gave a presentation on what they were kind of some troubleshooting tricks in the field, and then transitioned into software. They are working really hard to upgrade their software. And they provided a link for people to become beta testers. So I would highly recommend that you get involved with that. And I will make sure that that link gets out to the community because they do really want your input and they're open to suggestions. And Heather is one of the greatest people that I've worked with at Seabird, and she is really trying to make a good product for the community. So thank you all for being civil for the most part with Seabird. I appreciate it. And yeah, it was really great to have them too. So and who's next?
So I didn't make it to enough of the breakouts yesterday. Yeah, please come down. But I was troubleshooting in Massacos for a few minutes about the potential field pooled equipment. And I think the biggest news takeaway is that they are using or adopting some newer DGS gravimeters, which don't require ITAR export controls. They're hoping that they are as good as the previous BGM3s, but there have also been some new and different challenges. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. So yeah, that was the gravimeter one, but I missed Rick's synthetic talk. Thank you.
Thank you. So I was cross-eyed looking at online and taking some notes, so I probably missed some stuff. But from my notes, this is the MIRAS DEI Field Safety Toolkit discussion from yesterday. First off, there's a Google Drive. It's up on Whova that Emily's put up for all the resources. One thing that Emily talked about was that she had gone to OSU to her institution and gotten specific tailored, the Office of Institutional Diversity at OSU for ship specific scenarios for training, which I thought was a great idea. And if I was still with a specific institution, I would bring that home and do it. Eric, you're right. There's a discussion of also doing small, quick codes of conduct, even for cruises or specific field safety sites to help get community buy-in. It's still a commitment and requires ahead of time work, but it's a really good exercise to make sure that the whole group, even if it is a smaller one, everybody understands what the baseline is. We talked about respectful birthing considerations. You know, there's male, female, don't want to identify or identify as other, and it came down to what are you comfortable with? And we had an interesting comment. I won't say who from, but they had intentionally left it wide open to be more accepting. They said, hey, you know, anybody that, you know, it's the chief scientist does it and we don't care, right? As long as chief scientist says the party's cool, we're cool. And the institution came to them and said, no, you're being exclusive by not specifying that all of this is okay. So that was an interesting, you had to kind of think about that one. You know, I guess people will make assumptions not being told that truly these are all okay. You can, you know, as long as people are fine, you can mix and match and do whatever. And we also talked a lot about, you know, what information do you need to record, right? You ask for a person's sex on a lot of forums. Is that really necessary? Who does that go to? Some people, you know, in a casual setting will introduce themselves as George, and then officially they're Jimmy, and they don't want people to know that they're Jimmy. They don't like that name. And so, you know, casually, it doesn't need to be shared, and it's important for you know, I'm using names as a really easy version of this, but there's data that we collect about people that people don't want to be shared. And we need to be considerate that it is managed correctly. I think that's it. Did I miss any highlights?
I think we'll try to have more discussions on this going forward. So look for stuff from Maraz or from the DEI working group. We want to support you in your efforts. So whatever training and resources and documentation you need, we'll be here for you. So just look for more from us, please. And let me know if you have any questions on the Google Drive documents, and you can email me directly anytime. And thank you to everyone who showed up and participated at the session. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Gabe, for taking notes.
Thank you, Gabe. I missed the Marsam coring one, but I have heard that presentation before. So I just wanted to point out that they did some coring on synthetic, which has its own set of limitations. But one of the issues that they had, if I remember correctly, is smearing of the sediment from the recoil in the synthetic line. So while they got mud up, it was not in situ, and it was significantly less valuable for the science party. Anybody else want to share about their breakout? Yeah, please, Rick. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to what you mentioned about the Marsan's presentation. It was great presentation, and it pointed out some serious limitations with the 9/16 size. The stretch creates this smearing. I do want to say that for that particular cruise, though, the science was okay. They did not need that stratigraphy, I guess, that would end up being smeared for some applications. The other half of that presentation was with reference to the synthetic use and the additions that are being proposed and being considered for Appendix A. So how to use synthetics in the future those details were kind of discussed and the reasoning behind it. So we'll see what comes of the review by the RVOC Safety Committee. The one comment I will make in that there was so much information, either in one or both of those, that having just an hour was really limiting. And I think more discussion could have been generated had there been an hour and a half, for example. But I know time is an essence, but I felt like there was more to be learned. And so.
I guess that's a sign of a successful breakout that everybody wants to keep talking. So we're going to move on to the agenda. All right, so we've got Alice up with the marine facilities planning. I'm dying to know what she has to say.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's such a cool tool.
Oh, good. I'm glad to see that. Nothing like starting the morning up with a little MFP, right? I'm Alice. I'm with the UNOLS office. One of the big projects that we've been doing in the last, 2 years now is implementing this marine facilities planning program. And so, sorry, that got a little small, but the marine facilities planning, it's a multi-module system for requesting ship time, scheduling your ships, cruise planning, personnel capabilities, personnel planning, and inventory management. It's a lot. It was developed originally kind of as an inventory management for the Netherlands scientific research vessels and the NERC, which is the UK. And then it grew to this, went from just inventory management and then into scheduling and collecting scientific needs and that sort of thing. So it's grown into what it is today. The developers are out of the Netherlands, and now it's used by probably 10 other countries around the world. So I wanted to say this in case Jules will put this out there first, because I'm just going to do some broad brush strokes right here to give you a little update of where we are. But I am going to have kind of a office hours, if you want to say, from 1 to 3. I'm going to be out there if anyone has any questions on how to use the system. And then at 3 o'clock, we're going to have what I'm calling a users group, and it's going to be more focused on the cruise planning aspects of it. So if you're interested in seeing what they are, or if you're somebody who's already adopting it, please come so we can learn from each other. Right now, it's been me, the conduit, and we just had a meeting with Scripps and Washington yesterday, and they learned a lot from each other, just talking to each other and how the system's used. And Washington, who's been using it for about a year now for cruise planning, is going to kind of tell us some lessons learned that they've had and tips and tricks that how they use it. So definitely worth going to. Next, I just wanted to show you a little bit. Here I am logged into MFP, sort of, right? And I want to go and navigate to where the different modules are. So this is the schedule module, and it shows all your ship schedules. If you click on any of these at the top there, any of the cruises, you get a lot of information about those cruises on the right, over in that right-hand pane under the legend there. So there's a lot of information right at your fingertips when you're in the app. But if you want to go to another module, how do I do this? There we go. So there you click on what we're calling now the waffle button. Instead of saying, the button that looks like a stack of blocks to the left of your name. So the waffle button up there, that's your key to getting to all the different modules. These are all the modules available to me, not necessarily to all of you, but I just wanted to run through each of them real quick and let you know what they do and where we are with implementing them. So right now, the schedule and the schedule construction. So the schedule construction is where the schedulers go in and complete their schedules and edit their schedules. And the schedule module is actually the display of all those schedules. And we are there as of 2022. Now 2023 schedules are mostly published. And we're close. There are some issues with the statistics. One of the things we found out with the way we do business is that nobody else in the world accounts for sea days like we do. So it was a big issue for the developer, not big, but it's an issue for the developers to understand how we do it and then to implement it to get it how we need it. So that's the schedule and the schedule construction modules. And I would say most of you can work in just the schedule module because you can get to a lot of cruise planning information and information about the cruise straight from the schedule. The next one is the science portal. And that's where the scientists go in and add their information. So that our form now is based on our form from our old system. We are always looking for input if there's something more that needs to, be in there. But the important thing about that form is that we only want bare bones information because thinking about it, we don't want to have the scientists have to plan or add a lot of information in there when they might not get funded, right? So the point is asking enough information so we can schedule something and then getting more information in the cruise planning. So the next one is at the top there, the research planning module. And I encourage you all to go in there. Everyone has access to that. And it's a neat tool, kind of like a Google Maps thing, which helps you to plan your cruises. You can put stations on there. You can upload stations into there. You can say how long you're going to be at a station and helps with transits and that sort of thing. So I encourage you to go around and play. If nothing else, it's kind of cool. So personnel capabilities and personnel planning. These are two modules that obviously are for personnel. And I'm excited that the Scripps operator has said that they are interested in getting us started in that one. And so the cool thing about the personnel planning is that you can assign technicians to a cruise, and then those technicians have that schedule at the palm of their hand in their app or in online. And then if the schedule changes, their schedule changes too. So it's not a matter, it's all transparent. They can see it right away. And the personnel capabilities is kind of a neat way for the operators and the technician managers to keep track of trainings and any certifications. And so with the crew, this is kind of important so they can keep track of a certification. And if it's going to expire at a certain time and they're assigned to this cruise, it'll flag it and say, hey, this person can't go on this cruise because their certification is up. So lots of cool little tools like that. The next one is project management. This one is blue because I feel like we're kind of getting there. We've got the globals and the ocean class vessels are starting with the project management. We're going to talk about that more this afternoon. And Washington is really, I have to thank the University of Washington. They have really helped us iron out a lot of kinks. They went through a lot of growing pains. And so because of them, this next implementation should be a lot easier. And then finally, reporting. And you can imagine if all of this data is in one location, you can get some pretty sweet reports out of it. We're still in the process of getting there, but I'm excited at the capabilities. So how do I go next? There we go. So training, there is some I did a few trainings and introductions, and those are out on YouTube, and they're pretty basic. I'm not the most professional trainer out there, and there are actually help documents, but I will say there's not enough, and so we're working on that. As people have asked me questions, I've been capturing screen shares and putting those up on YouTube, which hopefully more people can make use of. So those are all on the UNOLS YouTube channel. There are actually 2 playlists for MFP. One is specifically for scientists and one is specifically for operators or technicians. So that's in progress. And if there are things that you would love to know how to do in there, I can do a screen capture and I can put it online for everyone and post it. So some reports, I just wanted to show you some of the cool stuff that it can do. So this is the Thompson, I think from last year, their schedule. So, it's on a map and then you've got the schedule on the bottom and then up top and how many days are in different EECs. So all this information is there and available. And if there's specific reports you guys want to see, we can make those things available too. So we're working on further reports. I'm not going to do this right now because it could get too hairy going over there, but just know that in the schedule module, when you're looking at your schedule, if you click on a button in the grid timeline, or if you click on a cruise in the grid timeline, there's a whole lot of information over to the right. And I encourage you to look at that. And that often links to the cruise planning information. So you don't have to work in project management or some of these other modules. But I encourage you to have a look around. Excuse me. So lessons learned. Oh, this got small too. Lessons learned. So I think I mentioned a little bit about this earlier. The academic research fleet, a lot of what we do is very similar to what other countries do, but there are enough of things that are a little different that it really, I guess I was a little naive on that, and it did cause some headaches for both myself and the developers, but we're getting there. And then the other one is, again, I think some of my I was a little naive, but we're a huge community, right? Most of these other countries have one organization that has 2 ships, and then one organization that has 3 ships, or one organization that has 1 ship. And we are, 14 different institutions, 18 different ships, 14 different, the institutions each have their own personnel, like their own personalities, they have their own histories. And even within the institution, you've got the operators and the cruise planners and the technicians and the accounting. I hear from the accounting offices, even equipment pools and equipment facilities. So there's just a lot of people, and we're working on bringing more into the fold here. And so one more lessons learned, more training is required, and I get that. And I encourage you to come to me if you have questions, and we can make things that are available to the whole community. Another one is, I think we were making too many tweaks. We kept trying to tweak it, which would then cause other issues, but I think we're past that now too. And then, everything moves more slowly than expected. So we are working on it, right? It is a work in progress. I encourage folks to go in there and look around. It's super duper powerful. But with that, comes a learning curve, and we want to hear your feedback, and I thank you for your patience, and I look forward to seeing anyone out there this afternoon. Even if you could come by, if you have a 5-minute question, just stop by, or if you have no idea what's going on in there, I can give you a 5-minute, 10-minute rundown on it all. And that's all I've got. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, go ahead. Oh, Jules has a question.
I noticed you skipped right past the inventory.
Oh, did I? Oopsie.
Can you just give a timeline on when we might expect to be able to?
Whew. Do you want to use it? Would you like to be my beta tester? No, Inventory management. So inventory management is one of the more powerful modules in there. It's pretty slick, you know, obviously keeping track of all your stuff, but you can also assign it to specific cruises. And then you could put together transports. It can create documentation for you, customs documentation for you, all that sort of stuff. Like clicks of the button because the information is there. And RCRB, we've kind of sort of started getting that in, but I can say we're all dragging our feet a little bit. I was really focused on the cruise planning, but I'm hoping this winter that we can work on at least getting some sort of model that RCRV. But if there's anyone else who's very interested in any sort of inventory management, it's really powerful. And I heard from other countries that they've started implementing with that module and they had a lot of real good success. So
We can talk.
we can talk. I love it. That sounds great. Any other questions? Go ahead, Eric.
Do you currently have an issue tracker? And if not, could you set up an issue tracker?
What kind of issue tracker? Like tracking issues from you guys, or tell me?
Something to keep track of bugs and fixes and things that we find.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
It's just not publicly displayed.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question and give the answer to them?
Okay, yes, the question was, do we have an issue tracker? And we do have an issue tracker, and I use it directly with the developers. If that's something you want to be more public, we can talk. But I worry a little bit because of the size of our community that they would be inundated. So we have to prioritize things, and I think we're really the highest priority are things that are bugs, right? Things that don't work. And then I'm hoping to develop within our community some sort of user group or groups that we can look at developing it for the future. So it's really neat. These guys are super interested in not only helping our organization, but helping all the other countries. And if the other countries get features, if they develop features for other countries, they'll give them to us also if we want them. We had the participant module that they developed for us, which is a really neat way to keep track of your cruise participants and all their forms and things. They developed that specifically for us, and the UK came to me and said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is great, right? A great addition. So it's a continually evolving system, and we're learning from the other countries who are using it, which is great. And it's not like they charge you extra money for it. If they develop it for them, we can just get it. So.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
So I think one of the things about an issue tracker is if what the issues are being worked on is like a list that people can see, you won't get 40 people complaining about the same bug because they can see that it is already in your task list and where it is in the priority.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it.
One more.
Go ahead, John Meyer.
Where my mind went with Eric, so I guess I have two questions. Where my mind went with Eric is if you're doing inventory, can you track issues about that inventory, like calibration instrument A?
Oh,
or
absolutely.
B?
Yep.
So maybe that'd be like a public facing thing that the developers would see, but maybe it would help the community. So just comment. on that.
Wait. Let her rephrase that.
Okay,
Say it for those guys.
John Meyer just asked a question about, he said where his mind went with the issue tracking was more towards inventory management. And are there issue trackers in the inventory management? And so within inventory management, they have, you add your calibration dates and all that, and there are flags that go up when something is not calibrated, or if you try to put it on a cruise where, that's beyond the calibration date, it'll say, hey, you can't do that because this thing isn't calibrated. So there are all those features in there.
Part two.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I miss some?
Yeah, I cut him off. He's got part two.
I have another question. Let's comment on Eric's question, but my question is, some universities have data integrity policies, and so we're trying to have personnel information in there. I understand this is an evolving thing, just curious where we're at on that consideration.
Yes, and that's a good question. So he was asking about data integrity and the fact that the personnel information is in there. So I got to remember, they follow is it GDPR, the European standards for personnel information, which is stricter than anything that we have here in the US. Once they have a process that goes through that once a cruise is finished, all that data is anonymized, except for the things that NSF wants to track, which is like the people's names, everything that has gone to R2R in the past. And so if the individual can choose to keep their medical data in there for future cruises, or they can choose not to, and if they choose not to, then that all gets wiped out too. So I do trust they have a good way of dealing with that.
Just to comment on that, I strongly suspect that campus CISOs would be interested in understanding the operating institutions and putting that information in there.
Okay. Good to know, thanks. Oh, sorry, he strongly suggests that the campus CISOs are interested in learning about how that information is put in there and how it's dealt with.
One comment from Luba and one more question in that.
Yeah, a comment from John at Haverlack. At some point, we may also want to talk about federated identity management integration.
Okay, what is that?
It's a
And-
single sign-in.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's funny because they've talked about that for MFP Global, because at this last meeting we were at, they were talking about making it more talk between the different countries about trying to make schedules more efficient and using MFP to do that and making a global or federated login for that. But we haven't gone anywhere within just the US.
I can't tell. Is that
Somebody
Lance
else.
back in the back? Or
Go ahead,
Josh?
Lance.
Who's responsible for training ship's crew? Like the master, the chief engineer, and chief mate?
Yeah, Lance had just asked who's responsible for training the ship's crew.
On MFP.
On MFP, of course, yeah. What is it? Well, the Coast Guard generally. No, yes, on MFP. And you know, Lance, right now it has been the operator that has done that. But I'm happy to help, right? I'm happy to put together trainings and be a part of any of that sort of thing. So let's talk. Okay. Oh, one more question. Lauren.
I just want to say, may not be apparent from Alice's talk, but she has done a tremendous job in separating this through from the beginning. We started visiting a year ago, and she's been incredibly responsive to all of our questions, and she's right there, responses and immensely supportive.
Thank you, Lauren.
For all you people at home,
You don't have to, that's okay.
Lauren just said, thanks a lot, Alice. You've been a great big help.
Yeah, it's a really cool system and, you know, it's super powerful. And so it takes learning and change is hard, but I really recommend, I think we can really streamline things within our, within your organization, but also within our community and sharing equipment and sharing information. So come on by and have a chat.
Is Ethan ready for FIC? I think that's next.
Yeah. Yes, no problem.
But you still have to stand on the dot.
You still have to stand.
Good morning, everybody. I will try and keep this brief. So for those of you who may not be aware, RVTEC is one committee of many UNOLS committees. There are several other UNOLS committees that are composed of scientists with terms. And on those, RVTEC and RVOC gets to put ex officio members in those committees. So I am the RVTEC rep for the Fleet Improvement Committee and the Arctic Icebreaking Coordinating Committee. So we call it the FIC and the AICC. So I'll talk briefly about the FIC really fast. So the goal of the FIC is to assess the size and makeup of the fleet and to ensure that it is meeting the needs of the seagoing science community. We look for ways to improve the capabilities and the efficiencies of the fleet. And probably, so I've been on the committee since 2017. And by far the biggest thing we've done is to develop what are called science mission requirements for the next global class vessel. So this is a living document that when did we actually come out with it, Alice? Like last year? Yeah. So we've released the first version. We're calling it a living document. We will probably be revisiting it several more times because, you know, it could be 10 or 15 or 20 years before Congress decides that they're going to fund that next global class. But when they do, those SMRs will be one of the first documents that they will look at to figure out how do we design this ship to meet the needs of scientists. So I'm involved in that, and because I rep you guys, I welcome your input, and I have talked with several of you, and you know, I can't do this by myself. You guys know a lot more than I do in your own specialties, so I'm happy to take your input and bring that to the FIC. So obviously the last couple of years we haven't had in-person meetings. We haven't done a whole lot of business, but we will be having our first in-person meeting in 2 weeks in New Orleans. And kind of one of the cool things about the FIC specifically is that our fall meeting is coordinated to occur at the same time as the UNOLS Council and the UNOLS annual meeting. So we all get to be in the same room with the agency reps, and there's a lot of good work that happens. So if you guys have anything for me to take to the meeting, I'd be more than happy to. You know, Eric Grubel brought something up to me a few weeks ago, and I talked to Alice about it, and we got it in the agenda. I'm going to bring it up at the meeting, and I guarantee you there will be a good result from that. So it's a committee where we can actually make some things happen. So that's it with the FIC. I'm going to move on to AICC. I guess, does anyone have any questions about FIC or? Okay. I'll keep AICC very brief because some other people are going to talk more about the substance of what we do in that committee. But the AICC came about mainly to provide an interface between the Healy and the science community. And when Schooliac came online, we also joined in on that. So a lot of what occurs during these meetings is, you know, reporting. The operators explain what the ships are doing. We get input from the science community, and then we look for ways to move that those Arctic science operations forward. We had a meeting in July. It was virtual. We should be having our first in-person meeting in January at the Coast Guard base. There was one thing that was brought up in the meeting that I think caught all of us off guard, and I want to bring it up here in case not everybody is aware. The Coast Guard made an announcement that starting in 2023, the Healy's mission would be changing, and that they would only be doing science every other year. That means in 2023, they will not have a science mission. They will be doing Homeland Security missions instead. That has huge implications for the Arctic science community because we are so resource limited in our assets to be able to do polar science. The reason I'm bringing this up in this venue is because this will also have big implications for the science support for the vessel, mainly the STARC program. So I'm kind of putting Brendon on the spot here, and he's going to come up and talk after me, but I sort of wanted to lay the foundation for that so he doesn't have to explain it, and he can spend more time focusing on how STARC is going to address that with the Coast Guard. That's all I have.
Questions for Ethan, or if they're STARC related, we can wait and hear what Brendon has to say.
Thank you.
Okay. Have we ever actually met in person?
No, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Brendon.
Stand on the dot.
Stand on the dot.
Eat the microphone.
Apologies in advance, I have not spoken into a microphone since karaoke. It's been a while.
Hit enter to get the next slide.
All right. Hi, everyone, I'm Brendon Mendenhall. I am the Arctic coordinator for the STARC program. STARC stands for Ship-Based Science Technical Support in the Arctic. It's a hell of an acronym. So I'm just going to go through essentially what we've done the last year and highlight some of our accomplishments. I'm going to talk about what we're doing in 2023 to improve the ship, and also our lofty but exciting plans for 2025 as Healy moves from a midlife into more of a service life extension program. And then I will also address what Ethan mentioned regarding Coast Guard's plans for science support. So, of course, none of us can do this alone, and STARC is heavily supported by a variety of organizations. Of course, National Science Foundation, Frank Rack and Jim Hollick, you guys are instrumental in providing us support financially and sometimes even emotionally. The Office of Naval Research, you guys do contribute to our funding significantly, especially if it's a ONR funded mission such as AMOS. U.S. Coast Guard, of course, that's everything from onboard command to deck force to Surface Forces Logistics Center and PAC area, as well as waterways and management. There's a lot of different organizations within that organization that we work with to make sure that Healy is prepared and ready to do science. AICC, it's been really great having that interface. Lori Juranic has taken over as the chair. And she's been working closely with Doug Russell and PAC area to improve communication and planning processes. Multi-beam Advisory Committee, you guys are great working with us on our patch test. It was a pleasure to sail with you last year on the Northwest Passage. So it's great to work with you guys annually. BUI, PFPE, Moscow, and Tom Lanigan have been really, really helpful this last year, working with BGM3 and also analyzing the data from the DGS meters and seeing how those are applicable for future implementation on ships. NGA, they got to sail with us, and they brought along the DGS meter that we deployed in parallel with the BGM3 last year on the Northwest Passage, and provided that in-person relationship and the actual instrument to analyze. A lot of lessons learned, and they sent it back to the manufacturer with a whole bunch of notes. Samos, Sean Smith has been very instrumental in just talking to us about our data. He'll let us know when something looks off. So thank you. Please keep sending us emails. Sorry if we don't get them because we're in the Arctic. Rolling deck to repository. Thank you for handling the data. And we do our best to provide it to you timely. So I think this last time around is probably a record breaker. We took a drive right off the ship. We got to scripts. It was uploaded in a couple of days. So great. UNOLS West Coast Winch Pool, you're at San Diego with us. We see you in person, and also we're trying to utilize your resources more. So we're going to keep that dialogue going. And also our partner institutions. So STARC is essentially a collective of universities that provide the technical support for Healy. It is the Scripps Institution of Oceanography from UCSD, Oregon State University, and University of Washington. They provide. My mic died? No, I lost my.
I don't have any more mics.
Can I just project or just? All right, I will project.
You can hold that if you want.
No, it's okay. I don't. No, thanks. Okay, so these institutions all are operators of their own vessels, and they provide the valuable technical expertise to support research on the U.S. Coast Guard Icebreaker here. If it wasn't for those technicians and the expertise, the science mission could not perform or even happen on any sort of level that the scientific community expects there to be. So we bring UNOLS standards and expertise to the U.S. Coast Guard vessel and to provide that context. And when we don't have enough technicians or there's a gap in obligations, then we can also lean on the UNOLS tech pool. So recently we had Tyler Peterson sail as a tech pool, and he's recently taken a position with OSU. So it's great to see him continue in our world. Okay, so real quick update on what we did this last season. Jules, can you give me a time? Where are we at?
Oh, let's see. 10:10 is when you have to be done.
Okay.
You got 20 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Or
so
finish early is okay.
The Arctic Mobile Observing System, AMOS, with Chief Scientist Jason Gobat, PI Craig Lee. They went up in the Arctic. Some of their stuff is it's funded by ONR, and there's reasons why I don't show pictures of it. So you get a nice picture of our CTD. We did four mooring recoveries, 7 mooring deployments, very low frequency mooring deployment, ice gateway buoy heavy deployment, a REMIS, and 3 glider, as well as 11 CTD casts. So STARC supports the underway science systems as well as the CTD, and they work with the scientists to provide whatever they need, whether it's deck operations, if we can fit into there, or simply providing the continuity and support of the underway systems and sonars. We were very heavily involved with the Synoptic Arctic Survey that just went up to the North Pole with Chief Scientist Karen Ashtian. This is the first time in many years that Healy has done such a diverse set of scientific objectives and different types of deployments. So because of a variety of reasons, including the motor fire in 2020 and the Science of Opportunity cruise in 2021, Healy hasn't done a lot of these operations before. So there was a lot of, I wouldn't say growing pains, but it was interesting. By the end of this cruise, the deck force was incredibly competent and we were bashing out stations really quickly. And we did a lot. And it's challenging to do science in the Arctic because there's ice, and Healy was able to perform admirably in the ice, and it was wonderful and heartening to see her doing what she was designed to do, which is top grade oceanographic research in the pack ice. So that was really great to see. And here we are with this is the Healy 2202 science party, standing in front of the Icebreaker at the North Pole.
Thanks, Alice.
I have a mic again. Okay, great. Okay, so overall, that was a very successful year for us and Healy. It was a lot of really good science was done, and the community seemed very happy, and we walked away from the ship in Dutch Harbor satisfied. So that was great. I'll touch more on what Ethan had to say about 2023 in the future. So looking into 2023, part of our role as STARC is we try to keep Healy up to date and relevant in terms of its capabilities. So, and we're always looking for ways to improve within bounds that are acceptable and fundable. So in 2023, we're actually going to be doing some preemptive maintenance on the transducers and updating some of the sonars. During that time, during the dry dock, they're going to be removing all the single beam transducers from the ship and preserving the interior of the wells as well as the transducer void. We will be taking that opportunity to replace the ADCPs, both of them, the OS 75 and OS 150, because they've been operating for quite a while now without any service. So we'd like to ensure that continues uninterrupted. And we will also be relocating those deck units in, I wouldn't call it a transceiver room, it's more of a transceiver island, because Healy doesn't have a transceiver room. But one of the issues of dealing with any sort of data transmission on Healy is the fact that there are thousands of miles of cable that vary from extremely high voltage, and EMI is a significant factor. This goes back decades where ADCP data have been noisy, and trying to find the right place to install the deck units and run the cables has been a constant challenge. One of the challenges is you have to run the cables somewhere, and typically it's overhead with other cables. So working with Coast Guard, we've worked up a work package that essentially is going to give us dedicated deck penetrations straight up from the transducers into where we're going to install a server rack and have our own isolated server island or transceiver island. So that's the picture on the right. It's going to, the ADCP deck units are going to move from that little red box to join the multi-beam and upcoming EK80 transducer or transceivers in the green box. And then those two blue circles are essentially the approximate locations of where we're going to be installing two EK80 fishery sonars, the 18 and the 38 kilohertz. That'll be exciting. And I can't wait to learn how to calibrate them on the Healy. It's a hell of a freeboard, but also there aren't any external zincs. So you guys that have seen ships high and dry, you understand that those zincs are quite a catch point. Healy doesn't have one of those. It just has a massive beam and a massive draft. We're also doing some preemptive maintenance on the multi-beam. Currently, we have the EM122, and over the years, our impedance results have shown that the RX array is degrading. We have discussed that with NSF, and the plan was we were going to replace the RX array in 2023. We had a kind of a win. The NABOs are updating their systems as well, and Tim Gates, if you're listening, or people know him, thanks for your work trying to get those set aside. They preserved the EM122 TX and RX arrays. We went to Baltimore to test them, which was an interesting experience. And we determined definitively that the RX transducers from the NABO are in much better shape than the ones on Healy, because they are at least 5 years newer, and they will be a great stopgap until we do something bigger in 2025. So that's exciting, saves NSF a lot of money, and we still have to do some work in dry dock. We got to modify the RX frame to, because this is the newer generation of transducer, and install the baffle kit. And along with that, we'll do a updated ship survey. Another topic that always comes up on Healy are winches and wires. They are going to be off-spooling the wires from the inter-ocean winches and inspecting them, and also inspecting the winches themselves. I could talk about that for days. So I could say that we are trying to inspire them to utilize the UNOLS West Coast Winch Pool services. Contracting and payments on the Healy with the Coast Guard is challenging. So trying to figure out how to inspire them to leverage and utilize UNOLS resources has been a constant challenge. We were sort of successful a few years ago. It happened, but it wasn't done the right way on the Coast Guard side. And someone got into a lot of trouble because they just did it, which was great for us, but it resulted in a lot of contracting headaches for future. So we've identified the mechanism. We think it can work. We just need people to, we need the right people in the right room to help us make that happen. Okay, so in 2025, we have some exciting stuff we'd like to do. We are going to update from the EM122, the 12 kilohertz system, to an EM304. Based on the water depths in the Arctic Basin, it's more appropriate of a multi-beam, and we can move from a 1 by 2 degree system to a 1/2 by 1 degree system. It's high resolution, and it's also full ocean rated, the Mark II. So it's going to require modifying the hull, but Coast Guard is happy to do that side, and NSF is willing to fund the system itself. That's all dependent on some of the higher level relationships, so we'll see how that goes. But that is kind of the direction we're heading. We're also looking to update the sub-bottom profiler to the SPP29. The Knudsen 4 kilohertz has been the workhorse of the ARF for decades, and the SPP29 is just an exciting enhancement that I'll talk about some technical details in a bit, but it's very exciting to see that capability come to the ship, especially because it's so challenging to do seismic or other type of work in ice. So, we're shooting through ice, and the way that the ship works is it literally rolls on top of ice sheets, and you got to send sound through it. So that's one thing, but I expect that this is going to be very exciting for a variety of users. And someone that studied SEDSTRAT in grad school, I find the product very exciting. And considering how it's important to map the EEZ and our extended continental shelf, we have floated the idea of the EM712 that comes with its own challenges because it cannot operate through an ice window. Therefore, we have to have a gate valve and an extending ram, which brings its own set of engineering challenges to the ship. It has been successfully done on the Canadian icebreakers. They're very happy with it, according to Kongsberg. And the Coast Guard is currently exploring that and the engineering challenges that will be associated with that installation. Okay, so I'm just going to talk real quick about the SPP29 because some of you may or may not have seen the product that it produces. It is it's a broader frequency range than the Knudsen, and it works in synchronous with the EM304. It uses the same RX array and a massive TX array. It's narrow beam, it's beam steerable, slope correcting, and some of the ability to sweep fore, aft, and starboard port through sediment package is very, very interesting. So these are products that were put together by my colleague Bo DeRozier. He was recently on the Sally Ride for the SPP 29 cruise, and they collected Knudsen data as well as SPP 29 data for a direct comparison. These lines are the same exact lines, one after the other. They just flipped the ship around, went back the other direction, and collected the same data essentially. And as you can tell from this lower figure, the resolvability, as he puts it, is much more enhanced. You can really resolve details in between the sediment layers, and it's on the decimeter level of resolution. So sometimes if you're interpreting seismic data or sub-bottom data, you're not sure what you're looking at. This allows for a greater degree of interpretation, as well as a much clearer picture on defining faults. So if you were publishing a paper and you were putting this image to the right here out, you could make an argument that that's a fault, but then you compare it to the product from the SPP 29 and it's rather definitive. I just want to say that these are not processed. These are the products that are put out by the data drive. Another example of the resolvability and resolution. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to show that because I'm very excited for that improvement to Healy, and I think it will be an exciting addition. So pivoting, we recently responded to NSF's request for proposals to continue with the STARC project. After analyzing some of the challenges that we face, we put together probably the largest revision of how we intend to support Healy in 10 years. And the current model is there is the Arctic coordinator, myself, and I work with our partner institutions and their technicians to provide the technical support, installations, dockside, dry dock, and underway. What we proposed was to change that from being a single point of contact, myself, and essentially borrowing resources from the universities, to having more of a dedicated team that would allow for more flexibility and continuity for supporting Healy, regardless of what the Coast Guard does or what the academic research fleet's doing and what the various schedules are. So what we proposed was to change from that single POC to, shocking, 5 times as many people, which is 5. Still the Arctic coordinator myself. There would be a cyber infrastructure coordinator who would work with C5I, as well as some higher level projects on the ship to ensure that cybersecurity and data management are all in alignment. We'd also have a systems integration engineer that would work with the various scientific systems, ensuring that they're up to date and any implementation is of the highest quality. And at each of our institutions, we would have essentially a lead technician. And so that means a significant proportion of their day-to-day would be considered thinking about Healy. Now, due to the fact that Healy only sails 4 months out of the year, it would be impossible to expect that such technicians would only sail on Healy, and it would be counterintuitive that they would be dedicated solely to that ship. Sailing on other vessels is an incredible opportunity for all technicians. So they would bring that experience to Healy, but they would also be working on dockside projects and some of the continuity issues that we face. To fill the gaps, we would also still do the matrix technicians based on availability from our partner institutions, as we have been doing for the last 10 years. We believe that this model is more flexible and will provide a more robust support model for Healy. It will be more responsive to the various changes that the Coast Guard puts out, as well as changes in staffing or scheduling of the ARF. Now, I just have to say that there's a little asterisk at the bottom. The Coast Guard and NSF are currently discussing scheduling for 2023 and 2024. What Ethan mentioned was the Coast Guard is moving to this model essentially where they want to support science 1 year and do national security interests on another year. I don't think I have to explain the challenges of maintaining a permanent team on a ship that doesn't sail for 18 months. We don't know exactly whether we will still be sailing on the ship when it's doing its national security cruises, whether we will be collecting the underway and sonar data, or what hoops we will have to jump through to participate in such cruises. I know there has been rumors and speculation regarding security clearances, and from the ship side, they are very supportive of our participation, but a lot of this is coming from the DC level. So currently, we're kind of waiting to see. Unfortunately, it kind of puts a kink into our hiring plans. We don't want to bring on new personnel without a clear model of what's going to look like in the future. So right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern. I included these slides essentially so that if you guys want to look through them later, you can get some more details on the different positions. I don't intend to read all that. So that's for you. Okay, are there any questions regarding those topics or any other STARC related topics?
I want to cry in my beer. That's just a horrible announcement. That's a gut clencher. Toby.
So moving the ADCP transducers.
Deck units.
forward,
Deck units.
cabling actually is what I'm interested in.
Okay.
You said that you were going to provide new dedicated through deck holes moving it forward of bulkhead that's on ahead. So that should get you away from a whole bunch of stuff and cut out about 40 feet of cable. But if I was going to try to get power off of those big ass, yes, or and are you moving the rack there as well from the corner?
Can you just summarize and repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was for the deck units for the ADCP, clarifying that we are installing dedicated deck penetrations as well as if we're moving the server rack and the source of power. Yes, yes, yes. We will be providing our own UPSs from the ship supply. So there'll be a dedicated 230 volt UPS that these run off of, and that is our responsibility to maintain, independent of the ship power. We are also relocating the server rack so that we can mount them correctly, of course, as well as the UPSs and other transceivers that will be installed in that place. And the dedicated deck unit, deck penetrations will allow us to run the transducer cables all the way down to the transducer void without crossing over any ship cables.
Yay. Question. Yeah, we have a comment from our online participant. Robbie Laird says, seems like the lack of motion correction on the newts and sub bottom seems a bit unfair.
I believe the Knudsen does have its own heat compensation that it's supposed to be in-house, but yeah, it is unfair. I didn't quite point that out. If you guys want to look at what he's talking about, it's a market difference. That can be removed, but with post-processing, of course. But you're right, it is kind of unfair.
Do you put the heave into the Newton?
Yeah.
Attitude something?
Yeah, the Knudsen does ingest IMU information, and it is supposed to provide a heat compensation. Royal.
When will the security missions begin? Is that going to start next year or the year after?
2023 is when this officially kicks off. So I have a vague idea of what the sailing season looks like, which I'm not going to comment on right now. They're planning on doing some big things that are exciting for national security interests, of course, and they have mentioned that science of opportunity is an option. So what that means and what that is, how that is defined is currently unclear, as well as the communication process for scientists to participate and plan accordingly for underway science of opportunity. It could work out really well for some people, or because essentially you provided free ship time to ride the ship or not, or send your packages. However, planning, we all like to plan 18 months to 2 years in advance for such projects. And especially if you're putting together a proposal, how do you do that when the ship won't clarify where it's going or what it's doing until 4 months before the ship leaves? So that's a challenge.
There was one more.
Can you comment on the cost difference between the Kongsberg and Knudsen?
An order of magnitude. And that doesn't include hull modifications, but that's, the Coast Guard is footing that bill.
Involved at all. Is STARC involved in the commercial acquisition icebreaker?
The commercial acquisition icebreaker, the IVIC. STARC is not involved and has no official information on the IVIC.
You are the soul of discretion. Untapped. Let's go on to tech training and give him a hand. We got a big job. Okay.
All right, mute the microphone. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm giving the presentation today. My name is Kristen Beam. I work for Oregon State University with the Regional Class Research Vessel Program. So I'm the Marine Science Technical Director, took over from Mark when he retired. And I am also part of the Tech Training Subcommittee. So here's our current list of members. We have a number of these people in the room with us today, maybe a couple online. This is a really great group of people. They're all very passionate about training technicians and getting opportunities for folks to kind of enhance all of the different trainings that, the different institutions have. So being able to provide different opportunities for these folks, or for all of you. I will mention that both Bonnie Clark and Kate Kuba are leaving. So if you guys are interested in being part of the Tech Training Subcommittee, which I'll kind of go through what we've been doing for the last year, please get in contact with us. Self-nominations are encouraged. I was talking to Lauren the other day and he said that, maybe he'll have a couple of technicians that are interested as well. So please, get involved. Want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Ethan Roth and the rest of the folks at UAF. We were able to do a Sikuliak calibration and training cruise this year. That was in January or February. This year's been going crazy. So the way that this cruise came about is, the Sikuliak had a slot of time to do some calibration work on their sonars and the rest of their equipment. So this was kind of their shakeout or their shakedown right after dry dock. So I know that there was a lot of work for the technicians and the crew to actually have, a whole bunch of us visitors on board. And I really appreciate it because we got a lot of feedback from the technicians and the different folks that actually attended. And if you come to our breakout session, we'll go over those results. But we went through a lot of different systems. We did an EK80 calibration and they're able to walk us through their different steps. They just commissioned a new ADCP. We went through the different multi-beam patch tests, and then John Haverlack was there and did network training pretty much every single day, different topic, and just kind of talked with different folks about that. We were able to do tours around the ships, and then they were all pretty up to date on splicing and fiber optics testing. So you can kind of see the picture on the right-hand side. We all tried our hand at splicing and tested how good the fiber was. So that was great. So I wanted to say a huge shout out and thank you. And if anyone has any ship time where they're going to do some calibrations, please reach out to us. And if you have any berths available, this is a great way to get technicians talking to each other and sailing with each other. And, those conversations and that cross training is invaluable. So when the pandemic hit 2 years ago, we kind of changed our focuses. How did we get, because we weren't allowed to, have RVTEC or any in-person trainings or meetings, but how do you still foster those communications and how do you get people talking and, you know, kind of those sidebars, conversations around beers, like how do you still foster that in an online environment? So we kind of came up with this What Went Wrong Wednesdays. So these are informal discussions, quarterly moderated discussions where we can kind of either talk about problems that people have been having, new resources that they've discovered or created, or we've been doing a lot of subject matter experts. And so there's usually a presentation component and then a Q&A at the end. And we've been keeping these ones unrecorded so that folks can kind of come up or, you know, come up with questions that they have, speak very authentically about the issues that they're having and not like worry about, I'm going to say something stupid or someone's going to judge me for not knowing this. You know, we really want to kind of keep that a really accepting and open atmosphere. But we do provide the slides and then also some of the dialogue afterwards. So here are the different What Went Wrong Wednesdays that we have had in the past. So we have hosted Marsam with Paul Wozak. He was our first one and it was great. So we kind of kept it rolling with Knutson. So we actually had someone from their company come out and do some presentations on their Knutson software and the hardware. We had the multi-beam advisory committee. So thank you for Kevin to being on that and the rest of the MAC. And then most recently we had SATCOMs with Sarah Kay. So if anyone is interested in presenting, again, please reach out to us. And we post all of this on the RVTEC listserv. So if you're not getting announcements, make sure you're on the RVTEC listserv. We are going to be hoping to do another What Went Wrong Wednesday in mid-January. So stay tuned for details on that. Another thing that we've been doing is a Did You Know kind of series. So actually Gabe has kind of taken lead on this. Folks will sometimes just email us with like random things and they're like, hey, I don't really want to email this all out to the RVTEC mailing list. They're like, but did you know about this really cool, awesome thing? And we're like, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we should definitely share this. So we've been putting tidbits of information submitted by you, the rest of the tech community. So if you guys have any small tips and tricks, feel free to send them our way. We can kind of package them up and send it out to the rest of the community. That's been another focus that we've done. And then we've also been working with Brandy and the folks at UNOLS to figure out what we wanted to do for the Friday training this year for RVTEC. So we actually put together, maybe you guys saw it, maybe you didn't. I think we had like 19 or 20 different responses to our survey that we sent out to RVTEC listserv. We said, hey, what are you guys interested in? What do you really need training in? And we kind of had a whole bunch of different breakouts of different things. You can see in our little chart down here, the people were really, really interested in fiber optic training. So we were able to reach out to a couple companies, see which one kind of was the best fit. And we were able to help work with UNOLS as well as UW to actually get a trainer to come here. So yeah. And Jim, thank you, Jim, for funding for this. So I guess that's another kind of plug. So if any institutions are really interested in hosting a training, we can kind of help support you. I know that in the past, OSU had a network training a couple of years ago. So kind of the way that worked was we kind of helped find the trainer and pair it with the institution. Then the tech manager would reach out to Jim and say, hey, you know, we're going to have this tech trainer here and all of these people. Do you have any extra funding? And Jim has provided extra funding for a couple different institutions. So we're just a volunteer group of communities, just like a lot of the different subcommittees or committees. So we can't coordinate everything for you, but we will definitely help support you. And there is kind of a funding model already established. So to sum it up and moving forward, send us your nominations for new committee members. Email us, please, techtraining@unols.org. Just any questions, tips, tricks, anything, we're here for you. Let us know if you have any calibration cruises or transits coming up with spare berths. We would love to send some technicians on it so that, you know, you can really get that hands-on experience. Be on the lookout for another What Went Wrong moderated discussion, and join us later today. Gabe and I will be hosting a breakout session, room 106 from 2 to 2:50. So that's all I have. Anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to say, at the manager meeting, it was talked about, let me make sure I'm in front of this mic too. The importance of institutions learning from our mistakes. So we're not making the same mistakes over and over again. And this What Went Wrong quarterly meeting, it's not recorded for a reason, so that we can be honest about what kind of mistakes have been made. And it is not a tattletale or a call out. It is, how do we as a community move forward and prevent them from happening again? So I really encourage the managers and the technicians, if there are lessons that you have learned, to contact the training committee and perhaps moderate one of these What Went Wrong Wednesdays, so that we're all benefiting from that information. And then the other one is, I don't know if you saw that, but the fiber optic training won by a single vote. And there were 19 votes, and the list is like 500 people. So it counts, it matters. If there are things you want to see, reply to those surveys, because it happens.
Yes. Thank you, Brandon. All right, thank you, everyone. And please join us for the moderated discussion later today.
Wow, look at that, 45 seconds left and we're ready for the break. Really? Wow, okay, see you at 1:45 for our CRV.